Right. Right. So today we have a very special guest, someone that's definitely been a role model to me throughout my life, and it's Adam Pearson. So could you please introduce yourself? How are you? How's everything?
I'm doing very well, very well. Because strange times, right? Been a weird 18 months for everyone, but I'm sure we'll touch on that as we go forward. But my name's Adam Pearson. I'm a British actor, presenter, disability rights campaigner from sunny Croydon, God's country, as I like to call it, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here and talking to you today. I've been a huge admirer of your body of work. It's watching from afar, and it's always a real thrill and pleasure to see young people within the visibly different community sort of doing their thing, working their way up, and that there are kind of younger voices with platforms who are using them wisely. So to have watched you go from strength to strength over the past 4 or 5 years has been an absolute joy, good sir. If I had a hat, I would tip it to you.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot, and yeah, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for I know your time's very valuable, and you're a very busy man, and to spend time with me, I got to salute that to you. Thank you so much. So yeah, you mentioned how you're an actor, and you're in the Hollywood movie Under the Skin, and that was with Scarlett Johansson. I'm pretty sure. So I just wanted to really know because I've been quite interested in it, and I wanted you to tell to I wanted for your view and for how you felt doing a movie, how it feels being an actor. And Was it a dream for you? Were you always for a goal to be an actor?
Well, I was always sort of acting as a kid. When you're a kid, you live in this sort of like you create these like worlds of fantasy, be it in the school playground or in the park with your mates, where you sort of like run around and sort of emulate your heroes, don't you? Whether it's like
Mm,
your Batman, your Superman, or kind of Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, kind of big boss man. I think the ability to exist in a fantasy world as a child is a really good, I suppose, training ground for acting. But for me, it was something I sort of fell into. I was working for a TV production company at the time, and then the casting call came in from Changing Faces, actually, who are the UK's largest charity that support people with facial disfigurements and visual differences. And someone you and I know very well. And it was a very loose casting call saying that they've had an email from a movie and they want a male with a disfigurement to be in a film and to get in touch. And the only concrete bit of info they had was the director's name, Johnson Glazer, who's a huge deal in advertising. He did the old Guinness adverts with the horses, the surfers, the Levi's advert where the guy and the girl run through the walls. And as a business graduate, I did business management at uni. I've written papers on his adverts and how he's just the master of advertising. And so as soon as I saw that name, I was like, I've got to at least have the phone call. If I don't throw my name in the hat, I'm an idiot. And then the more phone calls you had, the more serious it got. And at that point, I started to panic a little bit. I was like, oh my God, I might have to do this. And then they'll figure out that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. And then it just sort of wound up happening. And it was a really good experience. I was in like a lovely crew. You're in a safe set of hands. Jonathan and Scarlett, lovely to work with. I can't fault them. They were incredibly kind, incredibly patient, and consummately professional. And it did really well. Turns out I'm quite good at the old acting malarkey. And I'm a big fan of like learn by doing. You can study something all you want, but until you're actually there doing doing it at the coalface. It all is kind of abstract. For example, I could study how to drive an F1 car. I could read all the books in the world on it and watch all the YouTube videos in the world. But if you put me behind the wheel, we're all in big trouble.
That's a good way, yeah, to look at it. I can only imagine what it must have been like to actually been doing a movie and be doing a film. I mean, yeah, I like a bit of drama now and again, and I chose as a GCSE in school, which now I'm second guessing that. But yeah, I couldn't imagine doing a film and doing what you've done. Um, but yeah, you also mentioned about changing faces, and I one of the big charities that when I first started doing all my campaigning work, it was with James Partridge and Change of Faces, and James Partridge is actually amazing person, and he's we had a very close connection as well, and yeah, I used to speak to him a lot, or not face to face because we've never got that far, but yeah, over Twitter as well, and yeah, a change of faces was a big part of who I am today. And yeah, as we mentioned in the beginning, now we're in a very, very weird situation, especially with coronavirus and everything that's happened. And I've definitely been, trying to find different hobbies, trying to find different coping methods as well. And I like a bit of Lego, and I know you like a bit of Lego as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always loved Lego ever since a little kid, and I've always loved painting and all that, and playing games. Um, but yeah, now we're all kind of bit down, and we're all kind of giving up at the moment. I'm pretty sure, because it's lasted so long. Um, do you worry about all these the future of kids in our generation because of how long this has taken us to get over this? And yeah, do you worry for future generations?
It's a really strange one, isn't it? And I hope that we all come out of this being a bit nicer
Yeah,
to each other. But having not seen not just our friends but other humans for so long, that we might exercise a little bit more compassion, patience and tolerance with our fellow man. I do think no one is coming out of this unscathed. I
mm,
think it's left a great many people with disabilities they didn't think they'd have been having to cope with 18 months ago. However, I think the effect on our mental health is going to be astronomical. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be going out into this big new world. And I'm seeing little pockets of it here and there as we start to open up, be it in bars, cafes, and restaurants. There's this little bit of, oh, it's mainly, oh, thank goodness we're getting back to normal, thank goodness I'm out. But there's also a little bit of anxiety and suspicion, like bubbling under the surface, where we're all, oh, are we moving too quickly? Aren't we moving too quickly? Oh my word, that person coughed. Sort of panic. And I think it's important that we all kind of get through this together and that we
yeah,
get really good at talking about our feelings. And as I say, being nicer to each other. That's what I really hope comes out of this, is that we can all embrace our humanity more than maybe we did going into the lockdowns. Because the whole thing's been really divisive. And I
yeah,
know that social media isn't a good barometer for the real world, but like things just really shouty and angry, and I'm a little bit bored of it.
yeah,
To be honest, I've really dialed back how I use um social media because there's a lot of, and I say this with reluctance but equal conviction. There's a lot of idiots on social media, like a lot, and it's hard to win a debate or have a conversation with someone who's smart. It's impossible to have one with someone who isn't.
That that's 100% true. I've definitely had a couple arguments with some idiots online, privately, not to do with anything that I do. But yeah, I think everyone's starting to appreciate their lives a bit more, especially seeing everything on the news. And I think there was like this peak of social media and just being horrible to everyone. And I think that was like, I think late last year. It's still happening a lot now. I think it's because we just keep going in and out of lockdown. It's getting to the point where it's so bad. We have to stay in lockdown. We're in it for like half a year. We come back, we think everything's fine, then we go back in it, and that could be bad in your mental health. But then I think people go to social media just to find a way to pass the time, and then you obviously going to find these trolls on the internet, these idiots on the internet. They're going to pick on you. And it's just it has a serious toll on your mental health, and it gets to the point where suicide is going up in statistics. Domestic abuse is going up, and it's affected so much of our lives. And as you said, I don't think we're ever going to recover from all of the things that have happened so far. And money wise, mental health wise, we're never going to be the same. And this is going to be like that blip in humanity where we're all going to look back and say, wow, it's changed how we are today. Because I think people are getting quite careless, to be honest, with all their health, and people quite not hygienic. And I think we're going to be looking on that differently.
Me and one of my friends, Kai, were talking about this the other day. I didn't realize how filthy we were
Yeah.
until we all started to have to wash our hands every time we did something. And then we looked at the world around us and went, mate, this is filthy. Like, no wonder we're all sick all,
Oh,
all the time.
yeah. We're just, if my mum was taking care of everyone, I'm sure everything would be fine, because she always pop a spot on her, take your hand gel, have to wash your hands before dinner, everything. But yeah, well, yeah, you should see some places and where we live, it's just absolutely filthy. Like restrooms, bathrooms, everything. It's just yeah, and we need to definitely work on our hygiene. Even now, some people are filthy. And so yeah, on to my next question. And I think it's definitely slowed down when it comes to the campaigning because of coronavirus, but some people are still doing a lot. Do you think there is enough done regarding kindness and equality within establishments across the country, like within the media industry? Do you think there's enough people with facial differences or disabilities on the news? And do you think that it's becoming more of a normality now?
I think when it comes to representation, particularly of disability in the media, I think we're better than we used to be, but I still think we have a long way to go. I think we all too easily we tend to fall into these tropes of kind of inspiration porn, victimhood, or villainy, and it's never incidental. Where's the disabled guy on EastEnders where no one mentions his disability and it isn't part of a storyline or what have you? And that's when we get there. When we can have disabled people on the telly, be it in scripted TV or documentary, or just rocking up on stuff like MasterChef or quiz shows, and it isn't a talking point. It's just a
Mm,
thing. In the same way that sort of like race is a thing, in the same way that LGBTQ plus is is a thing. It isn't a raison d'etre. My disability and my disfigurement is a part of my character, but it's one small part of who Adam Henry Pearson is as a person. So it's a thing, but it isn't the thing. And I think when we can get there, then we're on to a good thing. And diving back to the first part of your question about kind of kindness, I think kindness is a much maligned characteristic now.
Yeah.
I think people see it almost as a sign of weakness. And I think the world has become quite kind of cutthroat and everyone wants to be heard and seen and everything was like really polarizing. And it isn't harm either. It isn't. I don't wake up and have to grit my teeth and brute force it. Like not being a dick isn't difficult,
Yeah.
and it bothers me why people just can't do it. Like a smile and a nod go a long way. We're not asking you to be sort of like a missionary or like a Mother Teresa-esque figure. They are very much once in a generation kind of people. But it doesn't take much to be nice, to be courteous, and as I said, to not be a dick. You know, just because you think it, you don't have to preach it. If you disagree with someone, that's fine. I disagree with a lot of people. Doesn't mean I have to tell them and go after them online or in real life. And half the stuff people say online, they never say
Mm.
in real life or say in the street. If you had to stand on the empty plinth in Trafalgar Square and say it out loud, you probably wouldn't.
Yeah. And I
And I
find it
think,
very interesting how you mentioned, like, people find kindness as like a weakness. They think that being kind shows that they're weak and they're not strong, they're not, like, manly in a way. And like we've lost that touch, we've lost that kindness that we've needed. And as you said, like even the small things count, opening the door for someone, nodding to someone, smiling to someone, it can be crucial to someone's day, even if they're feeling like really down. Maybe a compliment might go a long way in their life. And another thing that you said about how it's become more common, because when I was younger, I would think around like 5, 6 years ago, or even older than I'm quite old now. I'm nearly 15. I'm still thinking I'm 10. But back when I was 6 years old, I think, yeah, now 8 years ago now. Um, the people always used to constantly stare at me. And when I say that, I don't mean the occasional person now and again looking at me. It's like, oh yeah, he looks a bit dodgy, that kid. But I think every single person, the kids, the adults, just looked at me, and it wasn't even in a smiling way. It wasn't even that way. It was just judgmental and it was unkind. But back when I was born, the condition that I had, CMN, it was a 1 in 500,000. But now it's 1 in 20,000. So as it's becoming more common, it's becoming more of a common thing in society as well. And I find that very interesting that you mentioned that.
yeah, and the stares are a real thing because I understand curiosity
Yeah.
and I get that. And I think that there's an element of that's just human nature.
Yeah.
It, people cross that line between being curious and then it all becomes a little bit vaudevillian and a little bit kind of rude, and it sort of
Yeah.
sparks the sort of like Victorian freak shows, and then people whip up their camera phones and start whispering and pointing. And I've learned to sort of diffuse that now. If you get a good radar for it,
Yeah.
and you either learn to ignore it or you learn to kind of deal with it, but with a little bit of kind of sass and a little bit of class and what have you. And I've always been a big believer that if people are going to stare at you, make it worth their while. Give them something to stare
Yeah.
at and kind of put on a little bit of showmanship, gamesmanship. And in that way, it sort of, like I say, diffuses it. And it got to a point because campaigning is all well and good and noble. Um, and saying kind of, oh, we're just like everyone else, yada yada yada. Oh, completely correct, completely accurate. But you don't just say it. There comes a point where you've got to kind of show people,
Yeah,
well, and rather than changing what people think about disfigurement, you want to change how people think about it, and they're two very different things.
yeah,
And so I think if you're going to talk well, you need to walk well. As well, you need to kind of, you know, get on the floor, give it to them, and lead by example.
yeah. And yeah, that's exactly, trying to block out those that mean look or that comment. That's what happened when I was younger. And I kind of um I've become desensitized really, and I've said this quite a lot, but I've lost that sense of emotion of just giving one. I just couldn't care less if someone said something about me, said something to me, said a horrible comment, looked at me weird. I, I, I couldn't care less. And it's not like at the point where I'm trying to block it out. It's just that I I just couldn't care less. And that's just become,
Yeah.
it's taken years and years. It's just become a second nature to me. Just about like, laid back and just not caring what other people think, especially those low lifes on social media who think that they can hide behind a screen and say random stuff. And yeah, obviously they're not going to go out in public and shout and Trafalgar Square or Piccadilly. They're not going to shout to anyone all the stuff that they say on social media. But I think these like companies, these billionaires who have created these online websites, they've given these people a layer of comfort because they feel like they can get away with it. And I personally don't see the difference between saying something online and saying something in front of person. But I suppose it gets to that point. And social media is quite a new thing. It's only happened in the past 10 years or so. Do you think that a lot has changed? Do you think that it's a lot different now from what it was, let's say, like 20 years ago to how it is now, and to back in the day when you were younger? Um,
Mhm.
so I like to hear about your thoughts on, how how people would approach certain situations when you were younger.
I think the level of anonymity that social media has um, is gives people more power than they
Yeah,
would otherwise have. And to quote the Spider-Man films, with great power comes great responsibility.
yeah,
I think just because you can say something, it doesn't mean that you should.
mm,
Just because something's permissible, it doesn't make it beneficial.
yeah,
For example, there's nothing that says legally I'm allowed to eat my lawnmower. Am I going to therefore eat my lawnmower? Probably not.
yeah,
And back in the day, back before social media, when I was at school, if you wanted to say something mean to someone, you had to put effort in. You had to go find them. You had to go scour the playground of like 1,000 kids to find one guy to call him a dickhead. And then when you did that, you have to watch his soul break behind his eyes. And then you feel this good old fashioned thing called guilt or remorse. And you'd be like, oh, that felt bad. I'm not going to do that again. That's clearly upset someone. Whereas now you can log online behind an avatar with a fake name like Funky Badger 89 or what have you, say something awful to someone, and you don't see the consequence. It almost feels victimless when it isn't. And then instead of going, oh, that felt bad, I think I really upset someone, like, oh, that felt good. I have the power. And so I think it separates our actions from the consequences of them in a way that's not only unhelpful but unhealthy.
Mm,
And I think that idea of who you are online and who you are offline being different, I think those days are gone.
yeah.
I think the digital divide is completely blurred now. And I know there'll be people watching this who are gonna harp on about freedom of speech, yada yada yada. Absolutely, completely agree. Freedom of speech, absolutely fundamental human right. Freedom of speech and freedom of consequences are not the same thing.
Yeah, and I think people need to get it in their head about that, just because what you say, you can say whatever you want, and I definitely support people who want to say whatever they want, but they have to realize that there will be consequences for every single individual word that they say. Whether or not it's hi, the consequences of saying hi is a good consequence. It's a good thing. But when you say, vulgar language that like can offend someone, and you just say horrible words that demean someone, you can get the bad consequences as well. And people
Yeah,
need to know the difference. And yeah, like you said, you can when you back in the day, especially when I was like starting school, you could see the guilt of actually hurting someone on their face, and you could actually see the consequences of what you've just done. But online, it's just meaningless, isn't it? Like, it's just like
yeah.
just a couple moves of your fingers, and you've just hurt someone in a way that can't be repaired, and that's going to affect them for the rest of their life. And it's just,
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful nowadays, because I think a lot of people have become more sensitive, and jokes that might have been, like 10 years ago might not be acceptable nowadays. And I think that's just it's adapted to the way just people respond to it, and the consequences that come with it. And yeah, definitely. What you said, people who are online now, these children really, I think it's mainly just children, or just sad people, just using these online social media to their advantage, and taking advantage of how little these websites actually could care about helping the people on their websites. And yeah, I think yeah, you're definitely right with that. Yeah.
But here's the big question, and something that I don't really get. What what's the point? What's the end game? Like, if you're gonna go online and actually act in that manner, why? What's the end result that you're after? Who are you trying to impress? What possible good do you think is going to come from it? And yeah, I don't get why. I don't get why anyone wastes their time sending me not only a rude tweet, but a badly spelt, grammatically incorrect tweet, and thinks that I A care, B won't correct your grammar, and C, I like who are you? I literally don't care. Like,
I
you're a
know.
stranger. I'll never meet you in my life. You found me. Like, you've wasted an hour of your time, like, finding me and tweeting me. And, if you don't like me, amazing. Here's 20p. Go find a phone box and call someone that cares. Because I
Yeah.
don't.
I think it's mainly because about how these people, they feel so shit inside, and how they just need to pick on someone just to get that gratification, because they can't find the confidence to do it outside of social media. They can't find that confidence in themselves to like go
Yeah.
to speak to someone face to face. So they need to do it online without those consequences. And I think it's just yeah, it's just a power thing. I think
But
that's
that's really heartbreaking when you think about it. That the only way that people can feel good about themselves, instead of kind of raising their self-esteem, is
yeah.
to put down the self-esteem of others. And I can't remember who said it, but it really stuck with me. I think of all people, it was Dr. Phil. But blowing out someone else's candle doesn't make yours brighter.
That's a that's a brilliant way of thinking. I haven't heard that before, but yeah, my sister loves Dr. Phil, but that is definitely a brilliant saying. If you blow out someone's candle, it doesn't make yours brighter. And yeah, that's a good saying. I can't really say anything else about that. But yeah, going on to the next question. I'd like to know what motivated you in your life. What pushed you to have the career that you have today? And yeah, I'd just like to know more about
I would be, and if I don't say this, you'll kill me. I would be a shell of the person I am if it wasn't for my mum and my dad. My mum was what is still is. I don't want to talk about her in the past tense. She's downstairs. Um, she always had high expectations of me. She knew what I was capable of, and held me to that standard. And wouldn't let me sort of like coast on and be like, oh, he's disabled. We'll let this line. She's like, no, you're a smart guy, and if I catch wind of you not doing your best, I'm gonna call you out on it. And so I always had like a good supportive family behind me, and I didn't always enjoy it. Like you're teenager, you'll get it. There's sometimes you're just like, oh, just leave me alone, woman. Just let me play my games in peace. But then when you get older, you're like, yeah, I needed that. I needed that sort of like kick up the arse to
discipline.
get there. And kind of discipline and boundaries, and above all else, accountability. Kind of here's what you're capable of. Here's where you are. Let's bridge this gap and get you there. But then I also think that you eventually find your own way. And there's three really big questions that certainly help me get there. And it's what do you like and what are you good at? What
Yeah.
are your natural kind of giftings and talents and what have you? But then also what pisses you off? What do you see in the world around you that makes you morally and socially outraged? And very often, if you find your misery, you find your ministry. And I saw sort of like inequality in the disability space. And I was like, I know this isn't right, and I'm fuming. But being fuming on its own isn't going to do it. So how can I fix it? How can I plug into the system and be part of the solution rather than being either part of the problem or just watching from the sidelines being angry?
Yeah, and I know going alongside that, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you've had to face in your life?
That is a really tricky one because we all face small challenges and have our own crosses to bear on a daily basis.
Yeah,
And I think it's a case of hmm, it's going to sound really rudimentary, but getting on with it, right? We all have these like lofty ambitions and dreams as kids, and when we decide what we want to be, but that's only like a third of the thing. Then you got to do it. I think deciding what to be is relatively straightforward. Going and doing it is like rough, and it's a case of you know, is there inequality around disability? Absolutely. Are overcoming those boundaries is difficult? Absolutely. Have I had to work twice as hard to get the same amount, or maybe a little bit less respect than my non-disabled colleagues? Absolutely. And I'm not saying that what I go through or what you go through on the daily is easy, but it's absolutely worth it. And I think there's a lot to be said for putting your head down and come what may, getting on with it. And I suppose that now that I'm throwing all this out there, the biggest challenge I had was learning not to care what strangers thought of me.
Yeah.
To get to that point where I wouldn't let other people's ignorance be my problem, because it isn't.
Yeah.
And getting to that point, mastering the subtle art of not giving a damn is a really tricky one to master. To have that self assurance to know that what Funky Badger 89 on Twitter thinks of you has no bearing on the real world. What that random bloke on the bus that whispered that Dickie Cohen under his breath thinks of you has no bearing on reality. And in the main, I think human beings are wonderful people.
Yeah.
But it's learning just to not care what the haters think and put your head down and crack on.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that as well because one of the probably even the hardest thing that I've had to go through is just not learning not to care about what other people think. And that you become so conscious about yourself when it first happens. Even that's like giggle in the background, just like, oh, is that about me? Or if you hear someone whispering, or is that about me? You constantly start second guessing yourself every time you say something or do something. It becomes, it's like it's haunting you, but then you just have to learn not to care, and it just it's taken probably my entire life um to prepare me for where I am now, about just getting on with it and just not caring about what other people think. If they've got nothing good to say, then just don't acknowledge it. And but yeah, it is our human right to live our day every day and to enjoy it to the best of what we can, and to do whatever we want to do. And uh yeah, and I'd have to agree with you because it takes a long time, but now I sort of think that I definitely would not be the same without my birthmark, and I think that I'd be at a worse point where I am now without my birthmark, because it sort of prepared me for my future and getting that confidence in myself. See, I look at half of the kids in my school, they couldn't go and do half the stuff that I did. And I'm not trying to big myself up, but I'm saying it
No, no, no.
truthfully, that like it is giving me that extra layer of confidence. It sort of, it puts you lower than everyone else, but then you have to take that responsibility to climb up and to climb up higher and to go surpass everyone else.
It teaches you resilience. It teaches you how to
Yeah.
kind of go through hardship, carry it on broad shoulders, and come out the other side.
Mm.
And I think when you experience that at a young age, it sets you up really well for when other challenges come later on. And they will. They always do. And I had an element like that as well when I was at school. I was going kind of in and out of hospital, having surgeries. I was looking around at all these kids in the playground thinking, you pussies. In 5 years' time, when something happens to you, you will not handle it like this guy does.
Yeah.
You will fold like a cheap poker player. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for kind of resilience, learning to deal with hardship and deal with it well.
And the world is going through a lot of problems right now, and obviously, cyberbullying. pollution. I think the biggest one currently that's overshadowing all of them, which is why I want to know, because we've kind of forgot about all the problems that are going on in the world now because of coronavirus. But
Yeah.
what would you have to say is the biggest problem that we're going through right now that's just not been had that light shone upon it and it's not been focused on? What would you say that is?
I think young people's mental health is super overlooked. I think on kind of young people, I your age, there's just so much pressure. Kind of, you've got to do your GCSEs and your A levels, and then there's cyberbullying happening, and then you got puberty, and that's a thing. Jesus, that kicked my ass. And there's just like so much going on, and so little time to kind of slow down and take stock of it. And I think that's a thing that is going to be compounded by COVID and need to be looked at. That's very much something that is going to be should be put front and center when the world opens up again.
Yeah. And I feel like, a lot of kids over lockdown have lost a lot of skills to go through in life, especially when you're stuck in your house all the time. You can't go out as much as you used to. And you can't, mix with your friends. You lose a lot of social skills. And
Okay.
that brings it back to the loop of social media. It's all the social media is just basically in the middle of it all, and that sort of it's addictive. You check it, you've just checked it, and then you kind of want to look at it again, and you want to see more notifications. You want to see all this fake news that probably won't count in real life,
Yeah.
and and it really affects your mental health, and when we're stuck inside as well.
I blame this influencer culture for that. Like, I get legitimately annoyed when I meet people and I say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm a social media influencer." I'm like, "What? What does that mean? What are you talking about?" And also, what influence are you having? Because if by social media influencer you mean, oh, I put photos of me up on Instagram that makes 98% of young girls feel like shit. That's not a good influence to be having.
No. Yeah.
That makes you a dickhead in like my mind.
Yeah.
If the influence you have on social media is to make young people feel insecure about their bodies, and it's also not a real job. Let's stop kidding that social media influencer is a real job. Does it make money? Absolutely. Is it a skill? Absolutely not.
Exactly. And I think that I've seen a lot of people like that. They call themselves entrepreneurs as well. And it's like, what are you actually doing? You just get a pose, get a bunch of likes, you get that gratification that people like the way you look, like what you're doing. But then when it comes actually to those people who are looking at it and then trying to make themselves look like you or make themselves act like you, when you've probably edited your picture or you're probably lying about your life saying you've done this or done that. It just, yeah, it just seems also fake and also
Oh,
horrible.
it is. Well, one of my friends, Tom Campbell, great guy. BBC Radio Newcastle, a lot of the cultaholic wrestling stuff. He presents as well. Really switched on guy when it comes to social media. Because often on Instagram we put our best selves, we project what he would call our greatest hits. And so whenever you look at that, I think it's a dangerous comparison to make. And he says never compare your third album, your difficult third album, to other people's greatest hits.
Yeah. And it you can't really compare yourself to someone else. And I think that social media is this yeah, social media is kind of a funny one. It's just there's so much good about it, and people seem to ignore that, and that's why the bad has overshadowed it so much. People just seem to like promoting all of these people who just care about themselves, and that really just like making money off people. Or it's a selfish world, and I think it's really it's the system of how, you know, probably one of these models of online that have made themselves on, like, on Instagram or TikTok. They're making more money in one sponsorship than a heart surgeon does in a year. And you got to
Yeah.
think about it. It's just I really think can't really grasp it, to be honest. I mean,
No.
it's just a bunch of shithousery. How
Yeah,
these
I
people,
can grasp it. I can grasp it. I can't justify it. I can't
yeah,
morally justify it in my head that a bunch of idiots on an island,
yeah,
like, actually makes more money than men and women who save lives and who have been working their asses off for 18 months, getting us through a pandemic. The fact the cast of Love Island got double ranks before I did pisses me right off.
I know it does. And you know, these like there's like good people that are suffering. They're being put on furlough. They're running out of money. But then you got to think about it. While they're running out of money, that money's got to go to somewhere, and someone is making a ton of money off this, and it is just watching the world go by and just probably living somewhere remotely in their mansion, just enjoying it all. And it just it I honestly couldn't get it. And you know, when you look in football as well, you know, I do enjoy football. I support my team Tottenham. But then when you got teams like Manchester City, PSG bidding hundreds of millions of pounds on just football players, it just it kind of ticks you off. It puts you down a bit about, you know, minimum wages,
It's a
34
whole other
grand.
world.
Yeah,
It's a
and
whole other world. I used to be, well, I say used to be, I still am good friends with Roma Abramovich's old PA.
yeah,
And she just says it's literally another world. They talk about millions in the way we talk about pounds and pence. It it's insane. And the words million and billion get used interchangeably, even though they're vastly different. For example, um, a million seconds is 11 days. A billion seconds is 7 years. That's the difference between millions and billions. And we throw around the numbers in such a carefree way. And yeah, I think we need to think about that.
yeah, we do, because it's only going to get worse, because it's definitely a lot has changed in these past 10 years. I think more has changed than probably the past 100 years, because we've just evolved so much. Um, so yeah, that was quite an interesting conversation. You know, like uh, onto this you know, next question. I think is a bit more lighter, but what would you say is a quote that you would like to say that you live by? You could have made it, or it could be just a word or a phrase. I don't know, just someone else or anyone.
Yeah, I always go by when it comes to particularly visual difference and navigating the world, having one. The people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's definitely a good quote. The people don't mind them. Uh, I think my mum wants you to say it again. Could you say it again?
Yeah, yeah. The people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter.
Exactly. I think my mum got that. The people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter. Yeah, that's a brilliant quote. And you know, just you know, end off this interview. I know that your time is very precious, but thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me. What would you say your future plans are? And yeah.
Oh, future plans. I don't normally plan that far ahead. I'm a kind of week by week, day by day, um, like kind of guy. Because whenever I make long term plans, they always go wrong. Um, I'm just gonna try and keep doing what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
suppose doing the campaigning. I set up a consultancy business during lockdown, so I now go into we now go into big companies and help with their disability inclusion stuff, rather than changing what people think about disability, change how they think about disability, and like being the change that I want to see. I want an OBE or an MBE. I want the Queen to acknowledge me and be like, you know what, Adam Pearson, great guy. Until you know you've made it, when the Queen thinks you're cool.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just sort of go with the flow, I suppose, and that's what I'm sort of doing now. My campaigning's kind of slowed down over lockdown and that, but I'm still a motivational speaker, still doing speeches, to different schools and different companies. And I'm doing interviews like this, and I really enjoy speaking to people. This conversation that we've had today, it's so brilliant. Just speaking about issues that are just going on in the world and just getting our different views on it, learning about different journeys. That is the sort of thing that I enjoy doing, and yeah, just sort of going with the flow. So I'd like to thank you again for doing this brilliant interview with me. And yeah, so have you got any last things to say, or do you think you've mentioned them all?
I think I'm all good. It's been a very, very good interview, and the pleasure was all mine. Good,
Oh no, thank you so much. Thanks.